For years, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas has been understood in a very simple way, an open-world game where you complete missions, unlock areas, and eventually finish the story. The structure is clear. You are given objectives, you follow directions, and you progress step by step. Nothing seems wrong with that. In fact, it feels like the correct way to play, but that is exactly where the problem begins. When GTA San Andreas is reduced to just progression and completion, most of its design is ignored. The world becomes a pathway between missions. NPCs are treated as background elements. Activities outside objectives are seen as distractions because they do not contribute to progress. At that point, the game is no longer experienced as a system, but as a checklist. The issue is, San Andreas was not built as a strictly linear experience. It contains systems that continue to operate independently of the player. Traffic moves without waiting. NPCs act without being triggered. The city does not pause when the player does nothing. This means there are two layers running at the same time. One is the visible mission structure, the other is the underlying world system. Most players only engage with the first layer. By focusing only on missions, players treat the world as something to control. Every action is optimized for efficiency. Time is spent completing objectives. Every activity is measured by how quickly it leads to the next piece of progress. This approach makes the experience structured but also limited, because the more controlled the gameplay becomes, the less space there is for unplanned events. The world becomes predictable, system responses feel repetitive, and eventually the game starts to feel less alive. When the player steps away from that pattern, something changes. Not in the game itself, but in how it is perceived. Players begin to notice interactions that were never explained but always existed. Possibilities that were never required but always available. The system does not always need direct input to produce outcomes. This is where the shift happens. Instead of playing to achieve something, the player starts playing to observe what can happen. The focus moves from results to process, from control to observation, from certainty to possibility. This shift changes how the game is valued. GTA San Andreas does not only provide experiences through scripted missions, but also through unscripted interactions. Its value is not limited to what is completed, but extends to what emerges. However, none of this becomes visible if the player holds onto a single assumption: that the game must be completed, that all meaningful content must be explicitly presented, and that anything without an objective has no value. That is the core mistake. Not in how the game is played, but in how it is understood. The conclusion is straightforward. GTA San Andreas is not just a system to be conquered through progression. It is a system that only reveals its depth when it is not constantly forced to produce results. And as long as it is viewed only through the lens of completion, a large part of what the game offers will remain unnoticed.